Join me and learn how to make this gorgeous Twin Lakes top from Paintbox Yarns. It's a free pattern download using Paintbox Yarns and it's gorgeous. Let's get started with this gorgeous tee. The first thing we make, following along with the pattern, is the rib, the hem, that goes along the front and the back of our two pieces. And we make the hem in a separate piece like this. We actually make a chain and work backwards and forwards along, and then we lie it on its side, and this forms the rib, if you like, of the bottom of your t-shirt, and then we pick up stitches along here. So let me start by showing you how to make the rib. And it's a little bit fiddly when you get going, until you get going, but it's absolutely fine once you get going. It's super easy. So we're going to make a slip knot. Now you can make your slip knot any way you like, but I'll just show you how I do it. You just lie the yarn over your fingers, wrap it round in a little loop, and then pull the working yarn through the circle there. And that makes, I'll just do it again for you, a slip knot. So just yarn over your hand like this, make a loop, and then pull the working yarn through the loop like that. So I always like to make a nice long tail because it's good to tie in at the end to sew in without any bumps. Now the first step is to chain 10. So yarn around the hook and pull through the loop on the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 chains, and then what we're going to do is to work into stitches along the chain, and the stitch that we're going to use is in UK terms a half treble, in US terms that's a half double crochet, and we're going to work the stitches into starting from the third stitch, this third chain from the hook. So we count down 1, 2, 3. We're going to work the first stitch into that third chain. So I'm going to yarn over 1, 2, 3, yarn over, and then put your hook into the chain, whoopsie, and pull up a loop so that you have 3 on the hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3. That's a half double crochet US, a half treble UK. So we do it again, yarn over, then put your hook into the next chain and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And we work these half trebles, half double crochets into all the stitches, whoopsie, along the chain. Now, this can be a bit of a fiddly thing. Working into a chain is always a little bit fiddly. So don't worry, if it looks a bit baggy, don't worry, because there'll be lots of other rows to cover this one up. So yarn over, into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, and we work down the chain into the last one there. Gosh, sometimes cotton can be a little bit sticky. There we go. So I'll just show you. There is our first row with 8 stitches. Now we're going to chain 1, turn the work, and work along the other side. Now, as we get started with this, now that we've got the first row there, instead of working just a normal half treble or half double crochet, because we want this nice sort of ribbed effect, we're going to work into the back loop only of the stitch. And if I just show you the structure of the stitch, I'm going to put my fingers either side here. You can see these little V's all the way along. Now, these are the stitches, and normally when you work into one, you work underneath both of those V's like that. But to get different effects, you can work into either the front loop or the back loop. And for the purposes of this, we're going to work into the back loop, which is just this one here. So I'm going to just pull my loop up there. I'm going to chain 1 to take us up, and then I'm going to yarn over, and then I'll put my hook like this so you can see. I'm going to work into this back loop only there of the stitch, pull up a loop, so we've got 3 on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3, So we do a yarn over and we go into the back of the stitch, the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. This is very fiddly for the first couple of rows, but once you've got something to sort of hold on to, it makes it a lot easier. So I'm just working into the back loop. So as I say, don't worry too much. These things all even out, especially with a bit of blocking later. Yarn over. If you haven't seen our video about blocking, we've got a video about blocking. Blocking absolutely transforms any of your garments or projects that you make if the stitches are a bit uneven. So we go yarn over into the back loop, yarn over and pull through 3, yarn over into the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, and then we just work into the last stitches here. There we go. Now when we have a closer look at these, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. When we get going, it's very important that you always make sure you get into that last stitch, which is there, because if you don't, your hem might go a bit wonky. Now I'm going to do a couple more rows and then I'll show you what it looks like. Right, so I've got a few rows going along here so you can see how it's working out. And so you've got your 8 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sometimes you might find that you end up with an extra stitch, or maybe 1, 2, maybe one not enough stitch, so you could end up with a little bit of a wonky edge. If that happens and you're miles down the track, don't worry too much, because you can cover that up when you work the new yarn in. But I'll just show you how we do it so you can see it a little bit better here. But I'm just going to yarn over the turning chain. At no point during this does that count as a stitch, so ignore that first one there. So we're going to yarn over, and just so you can see it really clearly, I'm going to work into this first back loop there. Yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through 3. And as I work along the chain, I just want to show you the very last stitch, because what happens is sometimes it's very easy to miss that last stitch because it can be quite buried away. So the best thing to do is to work along your row, and then when you think, right, I think I've done all the stitches in my row, have a little count up, and if you're missing one, which is often the case, just remember that you can dig down and see, whoopsie, there is a little stitch in there. It's buried away a bit, that you can pull it out. There's a loop right at the end. So if you've missed one and your loop is getting you've miscounted, sometimes you do have to dig away into that very end, there it is there, that end back loop, to get right to the end of your row. So what we do is you work your rib, your hem, to the length that the pattern says. Now it will either tell you to work a certain number of rows, I think it actually gives both on this pattern, but it'll tell you how many rows to work to reach the right length. But because everybody's tension is different, I would advise you to measure. So see what the measurement is, how long your hem's got to be, and measure that. So that's the first part of how we make the hem or the rib. And the next part is how we start the actual t-shirt into the rib that you've already made. Now I made this one earlier in a different colour just to sort of have a little contrast from this. So let's have a look at what the pattern is going to tell us to do next. So when we start working all our stitches along the hem here, we're told to work a certain number of stitches along the hem into the top of the hem. Now the key here is to get them spaced out really evenly. Now the pattern would suggest that you could get 3 stitches in between 2 row ends like that. So 3 stitches here, 3 stitches here. And so you can calculate your number of stitches that way. So say, for example, you had to get 98 stitches across here, then you can either just sort of go as, you know, risk it and do sort of 3 for each of these, or you can be a bit more scientific. And I just want to give you an option. So what you can do is you can fold that hem in half so you know where the middle is, and pop a pin in. So you've got your halfway point. So let's say you had to put 80 stitches in here. You know then that you'd got 40 there and 40 then. So you only have to really count to space out your 40. Then, if you want to make it even easier, fold up another half, pop a pin in, and then do the same at this end and pop a pin in. So now, from our long piece of hem, for getting our 80 stitches or whatever it is that you've got to get in, I've separated that into 4 sections, so I know that I have to put in 20 stitches in each of these. And that just helps you to make sure that you are spacing the stitches out really evenly all the way along the hem. Now, for the purposes of this little bit, I'm going to take it out and just show you how to do it. But that, I always think, is a very good way to make sure that your stitches are spaced out evenly. So we take our little piece of hem and we're going to attach your Paintbox Metallics DK. There's, again, you know, lots of ways that people like to do this. I'm just going to pull a loop through there and I'm going to tie it. I'm going to tie it in a knot. I'm always a bit sort of superstitious that something's going to come undone. So I think a little knot is always a good way to make sure that it really, really doesn't. And I've left a nice length tail because I want to be able to sew that in later. So we start off, pull up a loop, and I'm going to chain 2 in the new Paintbox Metallics. Now, so let's work on the assumption we're going to have 3 stitches in each of these all the way along. We're going to work trebles, which is a US double crochet and a UK treble crochet, treble stitch. So I'm going to yarn around the hook. I'm going to decide to put my stitches, I'll just show you here, I think under the first sort of hemline of here, so that they're all in a nice straight row. If I show you here, I've just tried to make sure that all the stitches sit pretty much along where in an even line. It's not going to work out for every single one, but for the most part it does. So, holding the working yarn, we're going to work treble stitches along here. So yarn over, I'm going to put my hook into the fabric and pull up a loop. So I've got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm going to put another one in there, yarn over, I'm going to go into the fabric there, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm going to work like this along into the fabric, trying to just keep them nice and even as I go along, aiming for sort of 3 stitches between the row ends. There we go. And you can see how that's starting to sit in. So obviously these, I'm just adding them in to show you how to put them in. If you're doing them yourself, you'd be counting madly here and making sure that you had the right number in the right place. Yarn over into the fabric, pull up a loop. You've got 3 on the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're putting the stitches along, all the way along the hem. Treble stitches are US doubles along the whole of the hem. So let's put a few more in there. And it really is, it's quite a satisfying thing to see the colour change from one yarn to the other when you change like this. And I'm just working them kind of quite randomly, but when you do this, it's good to count as you go and make sure that you've got everything in the right place. And I'm trying, you can see, to keep my stitches all sitting pretty evenly at the moment that I'm putting them into the hem, so that they're all sitting along in a sort of semi-straight line, if we can, like that. So let's work all the way along. So I'm going to carry on putting my UK trebles, US doubles, US double crochet into the hem, and I shall meet you when I get to the end. Okay, so there we have the first lot of our UK treble, US double stitches all the way along the hem. And you might notice that these, it tends to sort of almost come out a little bit, so it's slightly, I'm going to show you on here so you can see what I mean, that the edges sort of almost come out like it's slightly wider, and that's just the fall of the drape of the fabric. That's not because your stitches are in the wrong place. So that's our first row, that's row 1. Now rows 2 and 3 are the rows that we repeat that form the pattern of the rest of the piece. And if I just show you here, to get this lovely effect, we basically have the first row that you've put in, which is a row of trebles, and then there's a row of double crochet, which is a single crochet US, and then trebles, which is a double crochet US, alternating all the way up the back of the shirt. So we're going to turn the work. Oh, I've just lost a stitch out of the back there. Hang on a second. Just put my last one in. The thing about this, just chain one and turn. The Paintbox Metallics is a gorgeous yarn, but it is quite slippery to work with, so just be prepared for that. So what we do now is we're just going to work a US single crochet, which is a UK double crochet, into every stitch all the way along. So I've chained one, which is my turning chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. Put your hook underneath the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And this is a single crochet US, double crochet UK. So into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And then we're going to work these single crochets US, double crochet UK all the way along the row to the end, and I shall meet you there. There they are. So we have done our first row of double crochet, which is a US single crochet along the top. This is the row 2 there, just sitting nicely, and row 3 is a row in every stitch along of UK trebles, US double crochet. So I'm going to chain 2 at the beginning of the row and then yarn over into the stitch, pull up a loop, so we have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we're going to work a US double crochet, UK treble into every stitch all the way along the row. So these 2 rows make up the pattern. So you basically are alternating rows of single crochet, double crochet for the US crocheters among you, for the UK people, doubles and trebles. So whole rows all the way along, and what you end up with is this. So this is the back of my crocheted tee, and so you end up with rows of double and trebles, which is single and double for the US, on top of your rib, right up to the point that you need to measure or do the number of rows that's specified for your size in the pattern. So this is a 36 inch tee, and I have done, I think it comes up at about 60 something rows. So you can work the rest of yours. I have changed yarns a couple of times. You can see where I've changed the ball just up here and just knotted a new one in. and one just there in the middle, and those are kept on the back so we can stitch those in to hide the ends later. So once you've done the back, you're ready to start the front. Okay, so the next stage is the front of our tee. We've worked our 40 something, depending on your size that you're making, 40 something rows, and now we're coming up to the part where we're going to create this beautiful netted V-neck. It's just where we create the V-neck within the fabric of the tee, using a technique actually called filet crochet, where it's just using missing one stitch to create a little sort of like netting effect, but using a chain to keep it moving. So the first row of the pattern is to work UK trebles or US double crochet, just keeping in with the pattern along to a certain point. So for me, that's 48 stitches. It could be anything from 43 to 56, depending on the size that you're making. And then what we do here, which is the midpoint actually of the V, is we, following on from the pattern, just make sure you can see that okay. So we work one chain, and then we're going to miss a stitch, so we're going to miss this one, then we're going to work into this next one, a UK treble or a US double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over, so I'm going to miss this stitch, work into the next one. There we go, so we've got one little hole in there. Then we're going to work one chain, and we're going to miss the next stitch, and then work double crochet US, trebles UK, all the way along the rest of the row. So we've got this little hole starting here, and then I'm going to work trebles all the way, treble crochet UK, double crochet US, all the way along to the rest of the row. So I shall meet you back when I've done that one there. So I've worked trebles all the way to the end of that row, and then on row 2 of the pattern, it's just keeping in with the theme that we were working with before, where you have a row of UK trebles, US double crochet, and then a row of US single crochet, UK double crochet. I'm now coming back across the row again, working in double crochet this time, and so you can see that I've got to the point, coming back with my double crochet, you can see the point, I've got to the point where there's the 2 stitches we missed last time here to create this hole. Now when you come back on the second row of the pattern, we still just work double crochets into the same place that you would, even though there's no stitch there, just work into the chain. So we're coming over the top. Can you see that? Just where the gap is. So I'm just going to work into that little chain. It can be a little bit fiddly there. Ooh, a little bit slippy on the old metallics. I think I've got a bit there. There we go. So just work into the stitch, the chain space, not the actual chain space, but the stitch, the actual chain. And you see that it's just created 2 little holes next to each other, and you've gone over the top. So now I'm going to work the double crochet UK, single crochet US along to the end, and then I'll meet you on the other side. Now we're going to work row 3 of the pattern, and it's difficult to see in this fabric, but I'm hoping you can see. Here are the 2 holes that we created on that first row of the pattern, and now we're coming along. I've done UK double crochet, US single crochet on the wrong side, and I've come back on the right side with trebles, UK trebles, US double crochet on the row 3 of the pattern up to 1 stitch before we did this before. So in your pattern, it'll tell you exactly which stitch to come up to. I'm doing the size 36 pattern. I'm coming up to stitch 47 here, and I started on 48. So here we're going to do the same thing that we've done here, but we're going to do it twice. So, and it is hard to see, maybe if I hold it against the blue background you can see those holes, but we do 1 chain, then we miss a stitch and put the treble crochet in here, double crochet for US people, and then we do a chain, we miss a stitch and put the double crochet US treble crochet UK in there. Can you see how these holes are coming? And then we do a chain, miss a stitch. Can you see how this is working out? So that we're actually putting holes in above the 2 holes we put here. And then we carry on with our double crochet, US treble crochet UK to the end of the row. So you've got there the beginnings of the V-neck that's going to come up like this. And with each row that you work, you'll start the filet crochet 1 stitch behind, so that it will start to create more bigger holes and to create the V-neck. So follow the pattern. I think there are 24 rows of this filet crochet plan to create the V-neck, and I shall see you at the end of that. So I just want to show you this gorgeous bit of filet crochet which is finished now. That's how it should look, into a lovely V-neck. And so now we have the 2 pieces ready to seam together. So I'm going to show you how we put them together and sew them up. So once we have finished the front and the back of this gorgeous t-shirt, we're going to sew it together. So what I've got here, and I can't quite get the whole thing in to show you, but I'm just pushing it up so I can see you, is that I've put, so the camera can see you, I've put the right sides of the t-shirt together, and I know that this is the wrong side because where I've attached all my yarns and bits and bobs, I know that I kept them all on the wrong side. So here is our wrong side facing up, right sides together inside, and what I've done here is I've just put pins along the edge to guide me to where to keep these pieces of the t-shirt together nice and neatly for when I sew them up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work up the side of the t-shirt until we get to the armholes, and then we're going to stop. But I just want to show you before we do that, there are 2 ways that you can do this. So you can either use your crochet hook and do a slip stitch, or you can use your needle and sew your way up. But either way, what we're going to be doing is working these rows together. So you're either slip stitching them together or sewing them together. So I'm going to show you the slip stitch method because that's quite handy, because sometimes you just can't find a needle. And then the other thing we need to do after all that is to sew these ends in so that they're nicely tucked away. So let's get ready to start the making up. So when you look at the pattern, it will tell us that we're going to work from the bottom up, from the bottom of the hem, coming up the side seam until you reach a specific row, and this is where the armhole starts. So for my size, I'm going up here to the 26th row. So it'll tell you how many rows that you need to seam, and then how many rows you've got left on the other side for the armhole. So I'm going to show you how we do this with a slip stitch. So I've got my piece of Paintbox Metallics that I'm going to do the sewing up for. And if you really wanted to be super precise, you could do this bit here in any ends of Cotton DK that you've got left, and do from up here in the Paintbox Metallics if you really don't want anything to show. The pattern says just to use the Paintbox Metallics for all of this, and actually you can do whatever you prefer at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my hook and put it through the last 2 stitches, the first 2 stitches there at the bottom of the seam. Then just take your yarn and pull it through. So you've got a stitch this side, and we're going to slip stitch our way all the way up. So I'm going to put it into the next 2 stitches there and pull the yarn through, and then through that first loop, and then we go again up through the next two, pull the loop through and through the loop. This is a really nice way to fix your seams because it's nice and, you know, it's kind of quite firm. And if you're used to seaming up blankets, you will know this technique well if you crochet your blankets together rather than sew them with the granny squares. So I'm going into the stitches, pulling the loop through and just pulling it through the loop at the back. So it's a simple slip stitch all the way up until we get to row 26. So I'm going to work the seam up to my 26 rows and then stop, and then I'm going to work the same on the other side, and we're going to then do the shoulder seams together. So here we have the shoulder seams. Now your pattern will tell you exactly how many stitches you need to seam across for the shoulder seam. Here's the neckline here, there, and so what we do is we count in the number of stitches. In my case it's about 20 coming in from the side, and we're going to slip stitch these. And remember, this is still, we've still got the right sides together in here, and this is the wrong side facing. So we're going to make the shoulder seams on both sides, make sure they're the same, and this leaves us with the neckline, the aperture there, which we're going to edge in a minute. So first thing is, just in the same way that you've done the other part, the side seams, just slip stitch together these shoulder seams, and I'll see you back here when we've done them. Right, so our next job, now that we've stitched everything, we've done our shoulder seams, so I've worked the shoulder seams, and in exactly the same way as we did before with the slip stitch on both sides, and then our next job is to work the armholes, just to put two rounds of double crochet UK, single crochet US around the side of the armhole to make it nice and neat. So I've done it on this side. Remember, I'm still at the moment, I'm still on the wrong side, so I'm working all the edgings and all the sewing from the outside, so we will turn it inside out to get to the right side afterwards. I've put 2 rows of single crochet US, double crochet UK around the armhole, and you can see that just neatens it off really, really nicely. So I'm going to show you how we do that on the other side, and then when we've done it on the other side, we're going to work it around the neckline. So here we are, here's our sleeve edge, and we start with the yarn at the bottom of the armhole, the underarm point. Now, depending on the size, you can get however many stitches all the way around the armhole. I think it's about 100 stitches, but check the pattern just to make sure. And as we've done in the past, if you don't want to sort of just run freeform and work that number in, you can put in your pin, or just sort of think to yourself, right, I've got to get 50 stitches in from the bottom of the armhole here to the shoulder seam. So we do 50 this side and 50 that side. But just space them out, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it evenly. And you know you're still inside out. I've still got all my ends in here that I've got left to sew. So I'm going to work that edge with the Paintbox Cotton DK, and that gives a really, really nice edge and a sort of a highlight. That's from the right side, it looks really good. And so what we do is we take the Cotton DK, and you've got your hook here. Now this is the bottom of the armhole here, and so however you like to join your yarn is entirely up to you. You can, you know me, I like a little knot. So I'm just going to pull the yarn through. I'll pop a little knot in, and you know, a lot of people can do. You could do like a standing stitch, or I prefer to knot things because then I know that it's really, really secure. So I'm going to just reach in and pull up a loop, and then chain 1. Now I'm going to work double crochet stitches all the way around. These are US single crochet, UK double crochet stitches all the way around. So I'm pretty much going to do little stitches as evenly as I can, bearing in mind you're sort of aiming to get that 50 stitches up to the top. To be brutally honest, it really doesn't matter if you have more or less. It just means just make sure they're evenly stitched, evenly marked out, but also so that you have a similar on both sides, so that you don't end up with something that sticks out. So I'm just going to work these stitches into the fabric, and I'm doing this, as I said before, on the wrong side of the fabric, and we're working into the rows here, so a bit like we did with the ribbing when we worked the stitches into the ribbing. Just keep them evenly spaced all the way up, and as I say, if you want to be really super precise, then stick some pins in and work to that. You know, do it in 20s if you prefer. Just, it doesn't matter how many pins you get in. So here we are. I'm just putting these stitches into the fabric. You can see on the right side it looks really nice and neat. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop filming. I'm going to get all the way around the armhole and meet you back at the bottom. So we've been all the way around the sleeve with our US single crochet, UK double crochet, and now that we're back to the bottom of the armhole, I'm now going to slip stitch into the first stitch that we made, which is here. So you just pop your hook in there, and we're going to just pull the yarn through that stitch and through that one on my hook, chain one, and then we're going to work the same, another row of US single crochet, UK double crochet, all the way round the armhole again, just to give it an extra little row. And if I show you, so just yarn in, pick up the loop, yarn over and pull through. So just the standard single crochet US double crochet UK that you're used to. And if we just look on the right side, you can see that that just gives you a nice 2 rows of stitches that neatens it off nicely. So I shall now go all the way around this sleeve, and then we'll do the same thing to the neckline. So we've done both our armhole edgings. Now, still working on the wrong side, so we're going to, this is where you can see all your seams. So we're going to turn it inside out at the end. The next thing we're going to do is to put in the edging, the single crochet US UK double crochet edging around the neckline. Now this is where, because we've got this lovely bit of filet crochet, the gorgeous bit of netting here at the front, you want to just make sure that you really are neat the way you put your stitches along the front, so that it's going to show much like this, with your sleeve. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to be lovely, but we just need to make sure that you're nice and neat. Now in the same way, we just want to make sure that you space your picked up stitches evenly across the neckline. And again, if you want to, you can put a pin in the middle there just to make sure that you've got the same stitches either side. It's entirely up to you, but it's good just to make sure that you're nice and neat. Now, as usual, I'm going to attach my yarn over here right at the side of the neckline, and I'm going to put a little knot in there. I've left a really nice long end there to sew in, because it's always important to really sort of bury your ends, and after we've done this I'm going to show you how I'm going to stitch that end in. But so the first thing I'm going to do is just to pull up a loop here and begin. So I'm going to chain one, and then just using the same method that we have all the way along, I'm going to pick up some stitches. Now, because at the sides we were working in 2 rows, here we're going to work into the stitch tops, and so that's going to help to keep things nice and even. So we're just going to work the single crochet US, double crochet UK all along, there we go, the top run of this neckline. And actually you can be well, I'm talking about being neat, but of course you're working into the stitches, so you've actually by default end up neater. So that's really lovely. So we're just going to go into the stitch, pull up a loop and work those edging stitches along the front of your neckline. And this gives it such a lovely little finish. And the way that we did before, we're going to work 2 rows of our single crochet US, double crochet UK along, and you can see how nice that looks there. So I shall stop now and meet you when I've gone all the way around. So just to show you now, I have got all the way around the neckline with our edging. I'm just going to work a second row all the way around. You can just see how pretty that is. It's absolutely lovely. So I shall meet you when we turn it all inside out. So before we turn it inside out, I just want to show you, I've done my 2 rows of US single crochet, UK double crochet, but obviously we've got these little ends to sew in. And also around and about through this lovely tee, I've got some other ends to sew in. And I just want to show you how I sew an end in. And I always prefer to leave a long end so that you can really bury it into the fabric, because there's nothing nastier than seeing an end sort of just poking out. So what we do is thread onto a tapestry needle, or if you want to do it with a crochet hook you can, but I'm just going to take this end and weave it through a few stitches in one direction, and remembering now we're on the wrong side of the fabric, and then, and this is important, come back in the other direction. And the reason we do this is so that it makes it more difficult to unravel this stitch. So, and then I might even just take it back in that direction a bit. Now you obviously have to be careful not to make things too bunchy, but I'm just going to trim it off there. But it does mean that then you won't get a little end poking out if you bury it nicely. I've got another one here, so I'm just going to take this through a couple of stitches in one direction, and then I'm going to take it back through these lower stitches in the other direction, just to give it a good old bury into the fabric. Now, when you sew in the ends that you've got from the Paintbox Metallics DK, you may find it is quite slippy because of the metallics. So I'll just snip that off there. And if I show you on the right side, you can't see anything there. When you sew in one of the metallics ends, so I've got one here, and just a word actually about if you're conscious that you're running low on a piece of yarn, always try and make it to an edge if you can before you change yarns. But if you can't, you can stop wherever and tie a little knot. You do have to be careful with this Paintbox Metallics, just that it can be slippy because of the metallic in it. Any metallic yarn, not particularly this one. So it's even more important to make sure that you sew it in backwards and forwards so that it won't slip out anywhere. And just weaving it, you can see here I'm just weaving it in and out of the stitches. It doesn't matter where you do it, as long as it's on the back of the work, on the wrong side, and it's nicely hidden. That's all you need to do. And then once it's well and truly buried, snip it off. Now, sew in all your ends, and then let's do the moment of truth and we turn it inside out. I'm going to come back and do these ends later on. But look at this. I mean, that is absolutely divine. So you've got that gorgeous neckline with a lovely row of single crochet US, double crochet UK, really nice and neat across the top. You've got it neatly around the armholes, and don't forget we've got that lovely rib down there at the bottom as well. So all in all, a pretty fantastic t-shirt to wear in the warm weather. So So well done, you've made this gorgeous crocheted t-shirt. It's perfect for wearing in the warm weather, in the summer, in the evenings. It's a really, really useful top to make. There are some gorgeous colours in the Paintbox Metallics DK range that you can match up with some cotton. It's just the most drapey, cool, gorgeous top to make. So tell me, what colour are you going to make it in? Where are you going to wear it? And what do you think of it? Leave me a comment and don't forget to subscribe to the Love Crafts channel for lots more fun crafty videos. Happy crochet!